We're going to be live in just a second on YouTube. Yeah, we're not going to be able to do it off the stream. It doesn't watch Party later. Thank you, Tori. Yep. We're live. Hey, everyone. This is Karen Hurd. Welcome. And I am going to... We're live. All right, so guys, if you just bear with me for a second. And I am going to, okay, I think, there we go. I had to close a tab. You guys are doing well. We're going to also start recording this. So we've got backups to our backup. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Hurd. I am a holistic health entrepreneur and trainer. And I am here with my friend, Stacy Lane, certified holistic health coach and board certified drugless practitioner. And she has agreed to share her story today. She is a survivor and a victor of traumatic brain injury. She beat the odds, exceeded expectations. And as you know, when someone in your family is given a diagnosis, whether it's from an accident or what have you, of traumatic brain injury, that absolutely changes the course of an entire family's history. It is a very profound, life-altering thing. It can be all-encompassing, not only for the care providers, but obviously for the person who is the victim of traumatic brain injury. But we are here to bring you some hope. And grateful to God that we have this kind of hope that we can share with you today. So, Stacy, I'd like you to start a little bit about your background and without, a little bit of what happened. How did you get were you traumatically injured?
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I guess the silver lining to what happened to me is that it pushed me to become a holistic health coach and a drugless practitioner. So I took lemons and made lemonade out of it. Right. So I was in a car accident, which I did not know for over 2 years, the damage that it actually caused. I was just told that I had concussion and post-concussion syndrome. Well, it ended up being that my brain, the back of my brain had slipped down into my spinal column, and my cerebellum tonsils were actually wrapped around my spinal cord and strangling it. So for over 2 years, I walked around wearing sunglasses every day like I had a hangover, and I wasn't drinking. So it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I've had every drug thrown at me. And of course, none of it worked because I needed some surgical intervention.
Right.
The last straw for me was when I woke up one morning and I went to walk to the bathroom and I couldn't walk straight. I could only walk sideways. And my husband's in the bed looking at me saying, "What are you doing?" Like he thought I was goofing around. I'm like, I don't know. I sat back down. I got up to do it, to walk straight, and I did it again. And I just started like bawling because I had no control. And that was really scary. So then we pushed and got an MRI, which is the only thing that can show what I was diagnosed with. And then when we found out exactly what it was, I had to go right into for brain surgery, my first surgery. I ended up with a spinal leak. So I went in for a second brain surgery. And back up just for a second. When I had the first brain surgery, I also had to have cervical fusion. Because here's the thing, when your brain is traumatized in some way, our bodies are magnificently designed to try and repair. So it did that. And while it was doing that to strengthen the muscles, to hold my head where it needed to be, there is a bone, and I hope I call it right, adenoid, which is really the very top portion of your spine. And it started to retroflex. So it was pushing into my spinal cord. So right there, I had 2 points of pressure on my spinal cord. So it had the second surgery. And then because it was all stemming from the brain, once we decompressed and cauterized the brain and got the stability going on, I ended up with residual nerve damage. So I went on to have 5 more surgeries, all having to do with nerve-related damage. So my wrists, my elbows, I had to eventually have another disc and my neck replaced. And I've already been told that I probably have about 4 more discs that are going to need to be replaced or fused. And this was all before I was 40.
Wow.
So,
amazing. So you've had already, what, like 5 surgeries, you said?
7.
Whoa, that's amazing.
I had 7 in less than 3 years time. Actually, I am coming this June will be 12 consecutive months without a surgery. That was my goal.
Congratulations.
Was that I want to go 12 consecutive months without a surgery and give my body and my mind and my spirit some time to recover, because you do need that. I mean, you keep getting back down, it's hard to keep getting back up, right? Yeah.
How are you able to physically even endure all of that? I think a single brain surgery would be traumatic just for a lot of people, but you've been through 7 in 3 years. You had shared with me in our pre-interview that you felt that it was because you were healthy to begin with.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to point to. And I want to make sure it's important to understand that, like you had said before, you know, when somebody in your family is diagnosed with something, or you're diagnosed with something yourself, you almost become a specialist. You reach out to every support group you can. You find people that are going through what you know, or have already gone through what you're getting ready to go through. So I meet a lot of friends virtually, you know, through support groups or whatnot. And there happened to be a mom of 2 young boys, and I have 2 boys, but hers were younger, that had a very similar surgery, similar circumstances. And she even had to go in for a second surgery because she had a spinal leak, and she didn't make it. She's not here. And I remember when I found out, somebody had messaged me on my phone, and I was driving, and I just looked down in it, and I had to pull over. I just started bawling. Like, why me? You know, why am I here and she's not here? So that was just kind of like that stamp of not approval, but get your story out there and let people know that yes, that purpose. And it really isn't so I can help you survive from brain surgery. No, it's, well, one, not have to go through it. But what you were getting at was being healthy going into it. I truly believe with all my heart is the reason why I survived the first brain surgery, which is the reason why I could survive 2 years of my brain not being in the right place. I really feel like if I wasn't in a good, healthy place, a good mindset, a good health, I don't think I would have lasted. I really don't.
It's like we talk about, because both you and I work helping people get healthier, hopefully proactively,
yes,
and not after the fact, that it's like, it's literally, it's like a seatbelt. You never know when life is going to hit you with something. And it's a form of being prepared. It's stewardship of your body, of the resources. You know, we always talk about stewardship of the earth, but the first environment is this one right here that we have to take care of, because you do not know. And Lord willing, nothing would happen, right?
Absolutely.
But when it does, you need every single ounce of reserve your body can muster. So how wonderful for you that you had taken that seriously. And just here's a little heads up, gang. She has another health story that she's going to share. So we're going to bring her back for another interview on autoimmune disease. So once you stay tuned for that, subscribe to our email list, message us, and I will make sure we get that information to you. So because you were healthy, I mean, that's emotionally traumatic to go with what you went through. How was it, can I ask, how was it that 2 years they thought it was just concussion? And we know concussion is a serious form of brain injury.
It is.
No big deal.
I was trying to be, you know, sadly, at that point I had to be retroactive. You know, I had to respond to that. So I was doing things that my research had showed me that were, you know, were helpful with recovering. I was doing like mind type of games. And if I was getting a headache, I'd make sure that the drapes were closed and just giving my brain a rest. But what I'm sorry, where was I going with this? What was your question?
How was it that they missed the
yeah. Well, because
what was really going on, or was it something that it started as concussion and then evolved?
No. They never did an MRI. They only
would that have been standard with the concussion?
No, it's not standard with the concussion.
That's need to know to ask for that.
Because of my symptoms, I did my research and I went to the neurologist and I said, I think I might have this issue. Let's do an MRI. And he's like, well, I don't really think you need it. I'm like, well, I really think you need to order it because I want it. You know, that's something that I learned before, you know, when I was dealing with getting healthy the first time, to be my own advocate.
Yeah.
And to say, I hired you, I can fire you. So if you're not going to do it, I'm going to go to somebody else who's going to do it. And then when I went back to his office, and in fact, let me back up. When I went in for the MRI, and if you've never had an MRI, it's very stressful. I had a little bit of a panic attack in there because you have like this cage right here and the big bang. But anyway, the claustrophobic, it's horrible, which apparently I am. Didn't know that. And I was overheating and I pressed the button and the tech came in and she pulled the bed out and she said, don't move, because if you move, we have to start all over. And I was like 10 minutes into this. And she just kind of pulled on the, you know, the grate that was over my face. And she said, you need to stay here. You need to finish this. And I'm like, no, maybe I need to come back. She goes, you need to finish this because of the reason that you're here. Because I'd already had a discussion with her of what I thought it was. And her son was diagnosed with the same thing.
Oh, whoa.
She already started in the MRI.
What? Yeah.
She wasn't able to legally tell me because she's not a doctor. And when I was leaving there and I said, what do you think? And she's like, you need to get into see a neurosurgeon right away. Because she had been through this with her son. You know, it's funny how God puts people in your path, you know, and it just kind of like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I went back and he came in the room and he patted me in the back. He said, hey, good call with wanting that MRI. What made you think you had that? I said, I don't know, my symptoms for the last 2 years. I said, I'm not a doctor, but I know my body. And that first neurologist basically was like, well, we don't usually do surgery for this, but since you're saying you're symptomatic, I said, you know what? I'm done with you. I left. I went to another neurologist. He didn't let me leave his office until he got the #1 neurosurgeon at Georgetown Hospital, was actually the head of the neurosurgery department, on the phone to talk about my case to get me from the neurologist office to his office. That's how serious it was.
It's just amazing. I mean, you know, I've interviewed a researcher we both know, Dr. Cheney.
Yeah.
And we were talking about some of the doctor blogs, and he gave me the scariest statistic I think I ever heard. He said, well, in every medical school graduating class, Karen, there's always the bottom third.
That's scary. You don't want to hear that when it comes to medicine. Right?
You don't want it to be yours either, but I'm so sorry about that experience.
It's okay. It made me stronger.
Yeah.
It really did. It made me more, it brought out more of a fight in me.
But if you had not done what you had done to recover the first time and learn how to be a patient advocate the first time,
right,
you would not have known nor had the confidence.
Right.
And where would you be today?
Yeah, honestly, I ended up finding out after the fact that I'm very lucky to have made those 2 years. It was so badly decompressed that my retinas were swelling to the point where I was about to have aneurysms in the back of my eyes.
Loss of sight.
I could not feel my fingertips or my toes. So I was having
neuropathy
damage, which is never going to be 100%, but it's definitely a lot better. But also I could have just stopped breathing in my sleep because your autonomic system is controlled by your brain. And if your brain is not getting the spinal fluid and the oxygen it needs and the circulation, well, then it has to stop something. And that's what controls your breathing. That's what controls, you know, just everything that goes on that you don't think about. Your digestive tract. I started having, they were going to diagnose me with gastroparesis, which means your stomach stops doing this.
You're right.
And I was like, where did this come from? You know, like I really started having like some really odd things go on that I'm like, this is not just a concussion. The headache, the migraine, yeah, that's a concussion. The rest of this, there's something more. And I kept trying not to listen to my body because, well, you go to a doctor and you go to a specialist, that's who you're supposed to listen to. So yes, going through that the first time, I kind of was like questioning it. And then finally I was like, no, something else. We got to do more testing.
Yes. Oh, well, and I think that's another important part of your story. We have had similar situations where we've had to take, I mean, literally not just take charge of our health in the sense of what we do every day. Do we drink our water, get our sleep, eat it, take our vitamins, all that good stuff. That's right. But seriously, advocate. So guys, those of you who are taking notes, write down, I am my own best advocate for my health. Yeah. And my son-in-law just shared a story today where he was in ER and they were going to give him another breathing treatment. And my daughter, who said, Mom, I am your daughter, got on there and she knows to go for the studies, went for the studies with his symptoms, reported to the doctor that he had a lactic acid buildup because of the breathing treatments, went, I think, against medical advice to leave the hospital, recovered on his own. Doctor called him back later and said, you were 100% right. I did more research. You were right. And now we know.
Well, kudos to that doctor for at least being honest, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just another example of,
you have to be honest.
Especially when you're in the kind of situations you are, and it's bigger than what you've encountered, and it's scary.
Right.
And you don't have the medical school background and the 20 years experience and the 500 people that you've helped with that, right? You don't have that. All you know is your body. And that what you're hearing is not that instinct, that intuition.
Right.
So listen to your instinct and your intuition. Let's go. So you had 7 surgeries. Can you tell me what they told you your prognosis would be, what they were expecting given the delay and the severity of your health issue?
To be very honest with you, my neurosurgeon wouldn't promise me anything. And in fact, he gave me some statistics that when I came out of surgery, I might have to learn how to swallow again, which means I'd be on a feeding tube. I might have to learn how to walk. So I'd have to go to physical therapy. I'd have to learn how to walk again, be able to open up jars, be able to write. Went to a retina specialist. Their prognosis was, if you don't get this dealt with, you're going to have an aneurysm, you're going to go blind. So that was what I went in with. And being the wonderful wife that I am, I didn't divulge all this information to my husband because he was already freaking out until the day before the surgery. I was packing up a suitcase full of supplements and anything powdered, liquid, anything. And he's like, why are you packing so much stuff? You're going to a hospital. Like, they have stuff there. And I'm like, oh, no.
No.
But I told him, I said, I need you to promise me one thing. And he's like, well, sure, whatever. I mean, he's like at the mercy here. Like, what? I said, please promise me that if I end up on a feeding tube and I'm not conscious, because that was another possibility, that I would have to be put in a coma so my brain could rest and repair. Do not allow them to give me anything than what is in the suitcase. Do not allow them to give me those chemicals that have all the stuff in it that is going to trigger my autoimmune issue, that is going to, I'm going to have a reaction to, it's going to, suppress my
whole other
recovery
set of side effects. Yeah,
exactly. And he's like, what? Like, I don't think he heard it. It was like, wah, 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 after I said I might end up being in a coma. And he was like, that wasn't in the paperwork. I didn't sign up for that. So it was a long discussion that night before, and a lot of tears and a lot of hugs. And yeah. It was.
And present, you had an awesome presence of mind.
Yeah, I went in actually, well, you can understand this. Our company was having a conference just 2 months after my first surgery. And I had already booked the plane. I bought the registration ticket. I booked the hotel. I had already made plans where my kids were going to go with my in-laws a few states away. And my husband kept saying, maybe we shouldn't do that because, you can't get your money back. And what if you're not feeling good? I said, no. I'm going to be there. And I did, by the way, get there. I was wearing my collar and walking around in flip-flops, but I did get there. So fast forward a little bit. I woke up from surgery. And the first thing I wanted to do was get up and walk around. And they were like, no, don't move. Because I had the spinal drainage and all that. But my goal was to be as mobile as possible. Because the more that you move, the quicker you'll recover in some cases. And in my case, that was the situation. And while the nurses in the ICU were yelling at the other patient, not yelling me, but being very persistent, saying, you need to get up. The doctor wants you to sit up. You need to sit up. And then you need to walk around the nurse's station once and with the walker. And I was the one going, it's time for me to use the bathroom. I need to go do my walk now. And I would do like laps. And they would get mad because I'm a really bad patient. I would wait for them because I actually got off the IV very, very quick because I stayed very
That's so awesome.
And that was a big thing. I didn't want infections. I didn't want all that. So that's a whole nother conversation. But I would shut the spinal drainage thing off so that I could get up and use the bathroom by myself. And then
little alarms would go off because you did that.
They'd come running down the hall. So I probably had a little star on my chart because of that. And because I was like, what are you giving me? What is that? Nope, I got a supplement for that. I don't need that. Like they want to give me blood thinner. And I'm like, no, I'm going to take my fish oil, that type of deal. Like I went in with some knowledge. And again, I did a lot of research of what they were going to try.
And you have to be extremely proactive. And here's the ironic thing about being in that situation. You don't feel good. You've just been through surgery and you have to be still 100%.
Well, I don't know. I was on some good drugs. I was feeling pretty good for a little while.
They were, because, a lot of times they don't allow you to do some things. And so you really have to be firm. And I do want to talk a little bit, because you mentioned supplements. I do want to talk about how to choose a good quality. You don't have margins sometimes. We have family members that have got some brain health issues and have serious autoimmune diseases. And there's not margins for poor quality.
No.
There's not a margin for it looks good on the label and it's basically a scam product. Right. There's not margins for that. There's also no financial margins because of the expense of chronic care and the expense of what you've been through, even after, no matter what kind of insurance you've got.
Just to throw a number out there, to date, because this is going to be, this is a lifelong thing. Like other things will come up because of that over 2 year damage that it caused. I'm somewhere around $650,000 in what my medical bills have cost.
It's massive.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you know that. I mean, it's just, how does a family deal with that and plan for weddings and colleges for their kids and a mortgage? And
I don't know what we would do if my husband didn't have such a wonderful medical insurance. There's no way we would.
Right. That would be
lifetimes and probably not be able to pay that off. So
yeah, that's huge. It's huge. So you were proactive. You knew what you wanted to do. You knew your body. I'd like to move on to a little bit about the nutrition piece, because both you and I are very focused in that. We are affiliated with a supplement company that both you and I will go to the mat for 100 times a day if we have to. Yeah. There's a reason for that. So I'd like to, just to frame this for yourself and for the people who are viewing this, we want to talk about how to choose a quality supplement. We are not going to get into a lot of specifics. So those of you are hoping we would say this many milligrams of that and this many of that.
No. Everybody's different. You got to talk to somebody. Yeah,
you've got to talk to somebody. So reach out to us and we'll help you if we can. But do reach out to us. But we do want to talk about the bigger picture, a little bit about diet. You've already heard about movement, and now you are a deadlifter, right?
Yes. So before the car accident, I was able to deadlift 275 pounds, which is well over my body weight. Yeah. And I'm not quite there yet, but I'm quickly approaching that now post-surgery.
That's amazing, especially with the spinal fusions and all that. Holy cow. Yes. So let's talk about quality. What to look for in a supplement, because we know if you go online.
Oh, they're a dime a dozen. Go to the dollar store. You can get them at the dollar store. You can get them everywhere.
If you're going to go to some of these stores, you might as well just sit there with your money and a lighter and sit there in the vitamin aisle and just light it up, because you just wasted it. So, and then there's the FDA recalls, and you can go to the FDA website and get the list and look for the brands. And I'm telling you, these pretty much, I'm just going to say it categorically, every recall that's on there, those companies weren't surprised. That is an indication of the quality. Let in their supplements, indication of the quality. Listeria, Salmonella, E. coli contamination, the quality. Not enough what the label says, quality control. Too much of what the label says, quality issues. Again and again and again and again and again. So what should we look for, Stacy?
Well, I can tell you what I looked for.
Look for it.
And what I recommend my clients look for is, first of all, where is it sourced from? You know, you want to make sure that it's coming from a good source.
What would a good source be? I mean, because that can be somebody that says, "Oh, you know, my backyard's a great source." So, right? So I know the grower.
Source, meaning that for me, I like to look beyond just non-GMO, beyond organic, because to me, that is just a minimum standard. I want to go with a company that sees the reasoning behind putting the money into the research, into the development, into the testing, and into going the extra mile to make sure we're getting things that are sourced from a natural place, meaning not having chemicals, not having pesticides, not having herbicides, not having like the lead in there. You know, that takes extra money and extra care. And most companies, especially the ones that are a dime a dozen, are not doing that because frankly, they don't have to.
They don't, and you know what?
Nothing mandating them that they have to do that. So it comes down to the integrity,
right?
Where you're getting.
A lot of companies are now saying we have the certificate of analysis, which is a step in the right direction. But guess what, gang? That certificate of analysis, you want the company you're choosing and the company we're affiliated with double checks the certificate of analysis. And it's often, I don't want to say often because I don't know the exact percentage, but has, we'll just say on occasion, found contaminants that the certificate of analysis missed.
Yes.
And sometimes we have back ordered products because of that.
Right. Because of the source that they go, nope, we tested, something popped up. Nope, we're going to find another source.
The other thing you want to find out is the USP, United States Pharmacopoeia, tests for 190 contaminants.
That's
not bad, but not enough.
No.
And there's a database. It's not uncommon for a country to re-allow a pesticide that had been banned. Things go around. People forgot, right? So you want something that has a company that has maintains a long database, not just what's allowed this year, and doesn't use government standards to hide behind. Well, the government says we only have to do this.
Right.
So the company that Stacy and I recommend test for over 350 contaminants, and 20% of the time finds contaminants not even registered by the USP.
It's crazy.
So when I don't care if you're an elite athlete, if you are just somebody who just kind of wants to be healthy, or you've got a situation where you've got zero margin for error,
right?
It's worth it to dig. When I was interviewing Dr. Cheney, and those of you that want it, I'll get you that interview. I talked to him and I said, that's a lot of research the average consumer won't do. And you know what he said? You get one body.
Yeah, that's it.
It's worth the investment of time. So besides the contaminant issue, which we know all you have to do is just
right. I'm a numbers person. I'm a research junkie. So knowing that there have been real clinical studies done on the completed product that I'm going to put in my body, not one ingredient that is in a product or not an ingredient that another company has tested, but the specific ingredient that is coming out of that bottle or whatever I'm consuming has been done. And to make sure that it's published clinical studies. Most companies don't have that. They would kill to have one. And we have, oh my gosh, how many do we have now?
They're almost 130.
Yeah, and it's just going to keep growing and growing because they're just so innovative.
And they've just committed another 10 years to gut health research. And we actually started out with a gut health product in the 50s when people said, why?
Right. And it's a hot topic right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. But the when you talk about the clinical studies, and I really got to get Dr. Cheney's book, Slaying the Supplement Myths. But I asked him, I said, where do researchers go? Do we go to the blogs? Because some are reliable, some are not, and almost every blog has a point of view, shall we say.
Yeah.
And he said the legitimate peer-reviewed research journals are found in the PubMed, P-U-B-M-E-D, and they're all on there. So the study should be on there, and the company that you're looking at should happily give you the resource. And I'm just gonna, before we go to the next criteria we want to talk about, I had a client who was a med school student, and she didn't believe me. Okay, fine. Be skeptical. That's totally cool. And she came back and she said, I called those other companies. The research they sent me was the research from your company.
Yes, I was just going to say that because I've done research and I'm like, wait a second. They're using this company's research for their product because some of the ingredients in this product, they might have in their product. And I'm like, that is scandalous.
That is like saying, you know what? I am so impressed with the Saturn or this car company safety model. I'm going buying it from another company. They're not the same. Doesn't cross over.
No, not all creative.
Cross over. So we've talked about the importance of research, a little bit about where to find it, and about the quality. Right. What else do you look for?
Well, definitely the safety. I mean, but that kind of, I think, ties into the clinical studies and the integrity and, quality and all that. But safety was a big thing, being that I have other issues going on besides a traumatic brain issue. I needed to be very, very certain and careful of every little micronutrient that I was putting in my body because, like you said, there was no room for error. I needed every ounce of energy, strength that I could pump into my body because there was a time frame where I really could not ingest food. So it was really important that what I could consume, and I would crush it, I'd put it in liquid. I'm telling you, I had to do it all. But I needed to make sure that what I got in me was the best of the best. Otherwise, what was the point? It would just been wasting money, time, and effort.
And potential risk.
Yes, because
potentially increasing your risk. You hear stories about people who were damaged by a poorly made supplement. Right. And so, in this company, really, I don't think has had any recalls in over 60 some years. Right. And there's some pretty major pharmaceutical companies and other supplement companies that just can't say that. So the quality is extremely important. The way a product is formulated is important because you can bring a supplement to market really super fast.
Yeah, I could put anything in a bottle and a capsule and sell it on a right now.
As long as the ingredients are on the generally recognized as safe list, and you don't make super outlandish claims, but sometimes you can get away before those claims get reported for a little bit.
Yes.
True. And so there's a lot of, and I think that is what makes your physician maybe skeptical, or there's a lot of nutritionists that are skeptical of supplements. And I think that's the environment that they're looking at.
Right.
They have a hard time believing, but
it's a slow shift, but it's getting there.
It's getting there because the research is becoming. So you had told me in the pre-interview, you said it's important to start this nutrition as soon as possible. Now, whenever you start, you start.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this and that hasn't happened, or it's just happened, how soon should somebody start?
I would say start with the basics. Start with the foundations. Look at what is on your plate. Look when it's in your fridge, what is in your pantry. Look at your quality of sleep. Look at what you're drinking, because that's a huge thing. And then the foundational nutritional support. And everybody's a little bit different, but typically those start with like the building blocks, like protein, multivitamin, and everybody, like I said, is a little bit different. For some of us, you might need a little more of this particular vitamin versus more of this vitamin. So it's really important to know where you're starting out, I would say, and then just slowly start filling in those gaps. And once you start filling those gaps, then you think about a house with a foundation. It's not as shaky anymore, and it's really strong. And that's why I always have that visual in my head of when I went into that surgery, I was strong. I mean, I was doing the weightlifting. I was doing the cardio. I was in roller derby.
Even with this thing going on.
Yeah,
that blows me away.
Yes, and I was pushing myself. I was in roller derby boot camp. Those girls are strong.
Not that your head would get banged around anymore.
And not only that, well, yeah, no, I had to stop that. But not only that, my mindset was, I am strong. I am going to conquer this. I am going to come out maybe a little wounded, but not broken. And I think those, to me, that is the foundation, is to have that strong start. So yes, if you're just starting at now, don't think, oh, I'm so far behind. No, you're not. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And if you're here listening to this, you're here listening to this for a reason and for a purpose. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that, oh my gosh, God forbid, you're going to end up in a car accident and need brain surgery, but maybe something else is going to come into your life where you need to be mentally and physically strong for it. Because it's going to happen. It hasn't happened to you. Yeah, it's going to happen to you, because that's what life is. It's these hurdles and these trials and tribulations that make us who we are. And it also shapes us to do like what we're doing, which is help people. Mm-hmm. I would have never been sparked to do this type of work. Would have never been, pushed to change a career that I was doing for 20 years, which I was really good at, by the way, and made great money, to completely start over. Like, I would not have done that if it wasn't for that traumatic event. And it changed my family dynamic, because before I was working long hours. I really wasn't around for my kids. Me and my husband were like two ships in the night, you know how that goes. And so I didn't have an option. I had to slow down. Things had to change. Mm-hmm. I had to figure out what was most important. I had to reprioritize. So maybe that's why you're here. I don't know.
but I think all of the above. And I was just reading a book by Robert Kiyosaki. Sometimes I love going to the Goodwill because I can find somebody else's old library. And on financial IQ, he said in there, and he has this little graph of a spiral going up like this. And he said, financial wealth, which we can translate into our conversation, but financial wealth comes not because you don't have problems, but because you become a good problem solver. So when the next problem comes, you can solve it, and the next, and the next. And that's exactly what you've said in relationship to health. It's not that problems won't come in our lives. It's that, how good are we at solving and building that resiliency physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, relationally, for these kinds of things. And these kinds of things do have gift qualities in them. And I've recovered from PTSD, which is a form of brain injury. And you don't always see the gift quality. And when people tell you in the beginning, there's going to be a gift in this, it's really hard not to maybe want to slug them.
Or everything happens for a reason. You're like, well, I wish
not right now. But so we talked about, but it can, and we also want you to be very, very hopeful. Because my feeling is this: you do everything you can to prove your physician wrong. No offense to all the physicians who are going to be listening to this. But we want you to beat your prognosis. And you know what? They do too. And sometimes it's their job to tell you worst case. It was like, you got the statistics. They have to give you the framework. And it's your job to say, I'm going to beat that. Yeah. And even if it doesn't quite work out as well as maybe Stacy's case or my case or another case, you will still be further down the road than if you had just said, this is just what it's going to be.
Yeah, no, I wasn't willing to accept any of what I was being told laying down. I was like, well, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out fighting.
That's right.
Because that's right. Truly how I wanted my kids and my husband to remember me.
That's right. That's right. And so
she didn't give up.
That's right. And so you've got protein. We talked about essential fatty acids, absolutely anything that's going to be good for brain nutrition. But when you talked about a foundation, we're really talking about, and I have to admit, maybe you can help me out with this. We talk about building at the cellular level. And I'm thinking, well, if you're getting good nutrition, it should all go into the cell.
Right. No, but it might not.
It might not. Why not? Why wouldn't it go into the cell?
Because like you just said, you need the healthy fats. You need other nutrients help other nutrients get into the cells.
And that's why a balanced diet
is sitting together. So if one's missing and this is missing and this is missing, well, then the other ones can't get in. Okay. So it's really important. But yeah, so like you were saying with brain health, there's definitely been a lot of focus on healthy fats, which before that, I didn't realize that I really probably wasn't getting in enough of those. Because we don't think about that. I think from a very young age, we're kind of ingrained, at least my generation, fat-free, fat-free, fat-free. Well, that has come to pass. That is not the case. There are healthy fats. So yeah, I definitely
your brain runs on fats and sugars and water.
And that's it. And that's it. And those are probably, well, most Americans are probably just sugar.
Right, which is a bit of an off balance as well. And they get the wrong kinds of sugar.
Right.
So let's talk about let's finish on the supplement piece.
Okay.
So we talked about proteins and building blocks, and protein would probably be ideally some vegetable protein because it's easier on the body to digest and process and more available for the body. And when you give your cells the nutrition they want, your body was created to heal.
Yes.
And it wants to go towards
recovery too. Huge.
Yes. So you wanted to do some basic building blocks, and you said some fatty acids, essential fatty acids. And essential, and for those of you that aren't familiar, means your body's not going to make it. You have to eat it. Essential to eat.
Get it from the outside.
You have to get it from the outside.
There were certain vitamins that help with the neurological part of it. You know, the rebuilding of my nervous system and keeping it strong and making sure that I was able to recover the nerve damage that was done over those 2 years. And I have to say, at least 90% of it has returned.
That's so awesome.
So, and that's fine. I mean, it was at the point where I would cut myself and I'd be like, where is this blood coming from?
Oh my gosh.
And I needed stitches and I couldn't feel it. So it definitely is better. I can feel, but it's almost like you have a pair of gloves on, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll take it. It's an improvement. My vision has not gotten worse. And in fact, my last appointment with the retina specialist was like, well, it hasn't gotten any worse. That's great. And I'm like, well, what do we do now? He goes, well, now we just wait. I said, wait for what? He's like, well, we wait to see if it gets worse. I'm like, yeah, I'm not okay with that. So I did some more research and I started incorporating certain vitamins and herbs that help to improve your vision.
And things like polyphenols and antioxidants.
Mm-hmm. So, and the side benefit of that was that it helped with my skin.
Your skin looks awesome.
That those same things help with your skin and your connective tissue and so, you know, no side effects, side benefits.
That's exactly right. So now in terms of food, or I guess you would call that macronutrition, what do you advise people to eat? There's a bazillion diets out there. And I know that keto was originally created back in the 20s as a way to cope with epilepsy and a focus on fats. It's not a diet for everybody because it cuts out major nutrient groups.
Right. The issue that, some researchers are starting to come out and finally admit what we're going to see in the next few years with that is that people are going to have problems with their liver and their kidneys.
Yep.
Because our bodies were not designed to take in that much animal protein. I'm not vegan. I'm not vegetarian. I would like to say I'm more of a Mediterranean myself.
Me too.
So pretty much plant-based with a very small amount of a healthy, clean source of animal protein. But protein, vegetable, and then any type of carby, starchy things.
And by carby, starchy, we mean whole grain.
Right. It could be a baked potato,
donuts,
a sweet potato. Yeah, no, those are refined. That is.
You have a whole wheat donut. This is what I want to know.
Right. No. No, that is a treat. That is a once in a while type thing. And if I do that, I offset that with more healthy fats and more healthy protein because those type of foods will trigger me to be hungry and I want more and more because they're designed specifically to be addictive. So I know that if I'm going to indulge in something like that, I better have a plan in place. So it's not like, let's just, let's go get some donuts or something. No, that has to be something that's planned out. At least for me. That's for me because
I think that's a good plan though for a lot of people, regardless, because those foods, our great grandparents ate those foods, but they had a much more physical lifestyle for one thing.
Yes.
Than we do.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't, women didn't have washing machines. It was washing boards, right? Or even if you had the spinner, you were still spinning it. So it was a much more physical lifestyle than we have. Grains were still more likely to be whole, and refined were super treats.
Yes.
Because refined were more expensive. So we've kind of inverted that a little bit. What has been for you the difference pre-brain injury and now a couple years out from surgeries and a year of surgery free from brain surgery? What have been the differences for you?
As far as what do you mean? What aspect?
Life. Yeah. How did your life change?
Well, like I mentioned before, I definitely had to slow down. I had to reprioritize what was important. And one of the biggest things for me personally that I had to make sure for my body, was that I continued being active. And that didn't mean going out and running. I didn't run before, to be honest with you. I'm not a runner, but I do love to lift. That's where I like to do. So I found, of course, I had to go through all the physical therapy and all that. So I did that. I did stuff at home, but it's not the same. I wanted to find a trainer, like a small boutique type gym that would be able to help me. And I was so fortunate enough to find somebody who deals primarily with people who have injuries. Well, I'm sure when I went to him, he thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help this lady. Because I was, and so when I was going to him, I was still going through surgeries. So there would be 3 weeks to a month where, I really was immobile. And he would still message me every day. And he understood the mindset part behind it. Like, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on yourself. And that was the biggest thing, was to make sure I didn't give up on myself. And knowing that I had that outlet for me, which was for me, by me, because of me, was super important. The component of the nutrition, making sure that I stay on point with nutrition, making sure that I give my body and my brain enough rest. Because if you are listening to this and you've had traumatic brain injury, there's what I call the bonus round, which is called insomnia, where, your body goes, oh, sleep, we're not going to do that. And you just need sleep. And that is when I reached out to some people in the wellness field that have been in this field for 30 plus years. And I'm like, what can I do? I don't want to go on sleeping pills. I mean, I didn't want any medication, which, by the way, guys, I'm not on any medication, like neurological stuff.
That's amazing.
Refused it, didn't want it. I went the natural route because I knew that my body wouldn't have reacted very well to that. So it did take a little bit longer, but so worth it, because here I am now and I don't need any of that. But when I reached out to people, they kind of gave me some tips about certain teas to drink, certain micronutrients that I could take that would help me around bedtime to naturally relax my muscles, just to kind of shut my brain down a little bit in a natural way. So it wasn't addictive. I didn't have, I wasn't groggy the next day. And then the other thing too, is to make sure that my energy and my stamina was good during the day, but remembering to take breaks when I needed to. And I'm still working on that. I'm not going to lie,
a woman thing.
The rest of my life.
That's a woman thing.
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm kind of like, I don't want to just sit still. My mindset is a body in motion stays in motion. Mm-hmm. And I learned that seriously the hard way, when I would go through those times where I wasn't able to be mobile. And then I would go to stand up and realize, like, my hip would freeze. And I'm like, I am too young for this. I am not 95 years old. So that's told me that I was sitting for too long, I would go to reach for something and my elbow would hurt. Like, why is it doing this? Well, because I wasn't being mobile. Things were just stopping to work. So kind of like, you have to work your muscles, you have to work your mind. So that was the other thing too, is, I'll do crossword puzzles. If I decide to watch TV, I'll make sure I limit that, because that messes with some things.
Yes, it does.
Definitely another thing that has changed for me is, although my ability to read has improved, because seriously, for a while, I'd read 5 words and I would get nauseous. It just was too much. The letters would do jumping and moving off the page. So I've, because I'm not able to read as fast as I was, I haven't given up. But what I do is I listen. I go to Audible and I listen to books, and I keep listening to books because that's a different connection now for me. You know, I used to be able to learn visual. Now I'm auditory, which is weird. We talked about this, how, you know, I have people in my house who are ADD, ADHD, and I never understood it until after traumatic brain injury, because now I kind of feel like I'm a little bit of that. I don't know how that happened, but my brain and the repair and recovery process has kind of rewired a little differently.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I really have to, in a crowded room, if I'm speaking to you, I am totally distracted by everybody else's conversations, and I really have to focus.
The executive brain function, by the way, they're now thinking that ADD, ADHD is brain injury.
The organization, let me tell you, I think I was, my family would say I was OCD. Now I'm kind of like, whatever.
That was okay. That worked out.
You know, like it's just more, I have to be more in what's the word? Intent. Like I have to intentionally do things that just came natural to me before. My husband says it's like I'm married to a different person when it comes to stuff like that, because I'm just not the same. I used to do it all, take care of it all, and now he has to pick up some of the slack.
Yeah, yeah. So how does your recovery compare on average to people that had the same type of brain injury? Where are you at versus where they are at? So what could be possible?
To be honest, I don't know a lot of people like very close to me, so I don't see them every day.
Sure.
But those support groups that I had mentioned earlier were really, really great, giving me a sounding board, you know, a friendly ear. And I've noticed that people have been through similar surgeries or similar situations. A lot of them are completely disabled, which, by the way, I am considered to be completely disabled. Believe it or not, I am, but I didn't buy into that. I'm like, okay, whatever you want to call me, it doesn't affect me.
Why would they consider you completely disabled? I mean, your brain's functioning, you lift weights.
Because of the diagnosis.
You run a business?
Just the diagnosis alone. That was it.
Not how you actually live, but on paper.
Yes. So that I'm trying to make the point here that a lot of the people in those support groups are on disability. They do not work. Most of them don't leave the house. Most of them are on 4 to 6 different types of medications. Many of them, and it really saddens me to say, but many of them are completely dependent on opiates and pain medications, because it's easier to just take a pill and go to sleep than to get up and go to physical therapy, to focus on the nutrition, to get your mind right, to reach out for help. You know, so I really feel my heart goes out to them, because I've been so blessed to have a supportive family. You know, my husband made sure he was at that hospital every day bringing me food, because he knew I wouldn't eat hospital food. So just little things like that. Like he knew what I wanted without me having to tell him. And if I couldn't do something, he would do it. And a lot of people don't have that. And then there are people who, even though they're labeled disabled, they can't afford not to go out and earn a paycheck. So they're literally taking these pain meds to get through the day, coming home and collapsing, and they spend no time with their family, their kids. They don't really live a life. It's just survival mode. And how long do you think the body can deal with that?
Not long.
Not very long.
And then when it goes down, it goes down.
Yes. And these are people that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And they're totally dependent on the medication and this broken system we have of healthcare and Medicaid and disability paychecks. And it's really sad. It really is. So yeah, that sadly is the norm for, and then they end up with more problems because they didn't actually deal with the first problem. So like I was saying about the neurological stuff, I was very proactive with, no, I don't want to wait 5 years for that surgery. Let's just do it now. We found the problem. Let's deal with it now. Where they're like, well, let's wait a few more years and see if it gets worse. No, I don't want to wait. Let's do it now.
Why would you wait? Why would you wait till it gets worse so that maybe we can't repair the damage?
Honestly, I think it's because most people are scared to death of surgery. And I'm not saying I was, let's go have surgery. But I went in knowing that that mentality of let's be proactive, let's deal with it now, let's be aggressive. Let's do it now. Let's not wait until I'm 50, 60 years old where my body is aged more and most likely not as strong as I was in my 30s. Maybe not. I've met some people in their 90s that are pretty darn strong. And that's my goal. But I'm just saying, you know, statistically, I'd have a better chance of recovering in my 30s.
That's right.
But in my 70s. So like, no, I don't want to wait. And not just that, I have kids. I want to be able to do things with them. And they're very active. You know, I have one that plays hockey. I have one that's like he's like a neurosurgeon. He's so smart. So they're going in two different directions and my husband needs me.
Right.
You know, he doesn't want to do this alone. So I had to get up and do it and push. I really did.
Wow. Stacey, your story is phenomenal. And I think that your testimony, your willingness to be proactive and being faithful to be proactive and not give up, because sometimes when we don't see the results right away, it's like, I don't think that this is working. And besides, it's hard.
Yeah.
Nobody else is doing this.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There were some nights where I was like, hey, hon, just go get some Ben & Jerry's. I've had it. And he'd be like, you know, you would really regret it if you do that. So eat an apple. I'm like, dang it.
I hate you. I hate you. I love you.
No, I had those low moments too. That's why I was saying that it's really great to have a support system where he knows where my heart is, where I want to be, what my goals are. And he wouldn't let me self-sabotage either.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What would you say to someone who has maybe, there's been a work-related injury and it's traumatic brain injury, and now they're being overwhelmed with information about their loved one, for themselves, and a lot of it's not happy?
Find a support system. That's the biggest thing. Find a good medical team, because even if you don't need like some type of brain surgery, there are really good neurologists out there and psychotherapists and all of that will help you strengthen and help those connections in your brain that have been kind of broken up. And definitely always go to nutrition first. That is the strongest medicine that God has given us, the strongest, not what you find at the pharmacy. You know, food is the strongest medicine. It can heal pretty much anything. I mean, really, if you think about it, what's in those pharmaceutical things were derived from what is now.
Herbs, yeah.
They've just figured out a way to reproduce it synthetically and to mix it in a certain way that it produces an outcome. And it's short term. Nutrition's long term.
It is. And it has so many benefits. A lot of times you do not see the benefit of it until you've experienced it. I mean, you don't know all the ways it's going to help. Right.
Absolutely. And just don't give up. You know, you might need a mindset reset. And then know that there's going to be bad days and prepare for those bad days. How do you prepare for those bad days? I have a playlist that I listen to when I'm feeling kind of like I don't want to do anything. And it gets me pumped and it gets me going. How do I prepare for those bad days? I already have my alarm set on my phone where I'm getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go work out. You know, like that's already in the works. But also being flexible to know that sometimes you need to back off and rest. But already having a schedule. And I think for me, the schedule was the really big thing. Knowing at this time this is going to happen, and around this time this is going to happen, and I have to be at this place at this time. Because for me, if I don't have a reason or a purpose to get out of bed, then I'm not going to. And that's what I've noticed a lot of, I can call my comrades that have traumatic brain injury in those support groups, where they don't even get dressed for 3 or 4 days because they don't need to. They don't have a purpose. So.
And I think being willing to share your story, doing what you're doing, helping people recover health, and that's what I do as well. I think a lot of times that is part of our purpose in pouring into the lives of others, comes back to our own life, right?
Absolutely.
The more you share, the more valuable your share becomes.
Yes.
All right. Stacey Lane, thank you so much for your openness, your willingness to share with my audience. And I will be, guys, if you need to, feel free to share this. click the share button, pass it on. If we can help anybody, just reach out to me and I'll make sure that we put you in contact with Stacy. We do have a referral network that we use. So we want to make sure that you get the best counsel and wisdom that we can give you. And I want to thank you guys again. Remember, no matter what is going on in your life, you can beat the expectations. There's a lot of negativity in our world. There's a lot of discouragement in our world, and it really will be up to you, with the help of God, to overcome it. And we really believe that you can. We're both here. We're both testimonies in our own way to that truth. So God bless you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and make it an awesome day to be as healthy as you can, because the world needs us. Bye.